Shayna Rayfield, representing District 2 for CPAC.
Lewis Cooper, member at large.
Kiara Daniels, member at large.
Jeffrey Sargent, District 3.
I'm Tara Gruber, the youth chair seat.
And on to cities. Okay.
Sorry.
Crystal, did you introduce?
Not yet. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulty. Crystal Edwards, Vice Chair.
Outstanding.
Hi.
And go ahead.
Elizabeth Altamimi.
Good to see you. City staff.
Tanisha Jumper, Executive Liaison to CPAC.
Peter Warren, Staff Liaison.
Hey, good evening. Mike Akey, Tacoma Police.
And I'm Chris Carl with the Tacoma Police Department.
Outstanding, and welcome to the meeting, everybody. I appreciate you being here. It's kind of a day of meetings. The purpose of this meeting is a special meeting. It can only contain one topic, and that topic tonight is the incident that occurred on Saturday night. With that, public comment is not allowed under the law, unfortunately, but we're accepting emailed public comment at cpac@cityoftacoma.org. I also thank the people who have already submitted emails for comment. We've got every one of them, and we'll take care of them as quickly as we can. In the meantime, tomorrow is the virtual forum for the City Council, and we encourage everybody to check in for that meeting and to be able to say your piece there. CPAC meets a week from Monday on the 8th, and we will take public comment at that time. With that, I'd like to turn it over to city staff to see for anything that they happen to have to say.
Stephen, did you want something in particular? I'm sorry.
Oh no, this was just an open opportunity in case there was something that city staff wanted to say. It doesn't sound like it, so without objection, we can turn it over to Tacoma Police Department. Welcome, Chief.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm clear. You want a brief on the incident that occurred at 9th and Pacific? Is that the focus for tonight?
That is the focus of our meeting tonight. Yes. And a quick brief.
Appreciate it. Yeah, sometimes I just need some clarification. On Saturday evening, on January 23rd, we received lots of calls from South Sound 911 regarding the intersection of 9th and Pacific being blocked and other complaints surrounding that. Officers responded to clear the intersection as one of the officers arrived on 9th and Pacific. He had his lights and sirens on, and the people that were the bystanders, they were watching a car racing, drifting incident that was occurring in the middle of the intersection. The police vehicle was surrounded by the crowd. What we've heard so far is that the individuals that were there began hitting and striking at the vehicle, and the officer put his car in reverse, tried to back out of the situation for whatever reason. That didn't work. So he put the car in drive and moved forward. And I think as you guys have seen the videos, and I was able to see a couple of the videos, the vehicle lunged forward, striking. a few of the bystanders that were there. The car our patrol car continued to move forward north of Pacific Avenue, stopped, called for other units to respond as well as medical aid. What we do know is there's 2 people went to the hospital. One was admitted. I'm glad to hear that both of them are now have been cleared from the hospital. I think one stayed overnight. The other one was released that night. At that night, because of the incident that, as we're made aware in the situation that I described, obviously we need to know more information about what happened. Based upon the totality of the situation, we made a determination to call PC Fit because of the deadly use of force. PC Fit came and eventually came to take over the investigation, and we responded as we maintained the perimeter until they got there. That's the basis of the incident, and be happy to answer whatever questions you can without violating the conditions of that PC Fit investigation. And I would let everyone know up front, the information that I have is not complete. As you know, under that spirit of I-940, that has to be investigated once we make that determination by an outside agency. Therefore, the information we have is going to be limited. But what I do know, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And with that, I'll go ahead and open it to committee members to ask questions, or if they have some concerns that they want to share. We'll call it a free and open forum. I'll start with Vice Chair Crystal.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Kiara, for initiating this meeting. And I just want to start off and say I'm incredibly concerned about our fractured community. And I think we can help heal the community by allowing the investigation to go forth. And as CPAC, not jumping to conclusions about how and why the incident happened. We need to learn more, just like Chief Akey said. As CPAC, we're not here to point fingers at citizens or police. And if we do this, it can be really contagious. We have an opportunity as leaders in this committee to hold police accountable and provide a voice of reason for the community. We can help by allowing due process and being patient for the investigation, along with providing some sort of trauma response to the community. I think we acknowledge that this incident was traumatic for all parties involved, for the community, for the police, for the victims that were run over. And I hope that we can continue to do that by doing our job with CPAC and continuing to evaluate the policies and procedures moving forward. That's all I have, Stephen.
Thank you, Crystal. Kiara?
I want to echo a couple of things that Crystal just said. So I'm trying to gather my thoughts first before I go in, as we just got out of another meeting that influenced everything that I already had planned to say. Generally, I feel like what's missing from the conversation right now is the concern for the families and the people that had to witness what happened on Saturday, that were traumatized by that, including myself, that were traumatized by that were traumatized yet again by the idea that our entire city might be burned down the next day, and then yet traumatized again tonight by the conversation being about street racing. I won't go too far into that, but I will just say that I myself am traumatized, and I'll leave it at that. I'm extremely concerned as a committee member. I'm concerned as a community member. I'm concerned as a taxpayer. And I am concerned as a person of color, specifically a Black person of color. I have a million words right here, and I'm very upset. What I want to talk about tonight is policy. I want to talk about how we move forward. I want to talk about how we begin to repair the relationships. We see that there is work to be done, and I have seen almost no accountability for anything that has taken place. Chief, I see you. The car lunged into the person, the person didn't have anything to do with that. Like, I see you on that. The community heard you say that the car did that, right? Like, that's completely unacceptable. And I hear no accountability on the police department's part. And I'm trying not to be the number one enemy of TPD, right? I'm trying to collaborate. I'm trying to bring my thoughts respectfully. But we hear you and we see you. The things that I had in my mind to bring up as we go forward about how we can make this process better. We need to talk about what this process looks like going forward. We had to meet one-on-one. We had to gather. We can't do that. We have to have a process that allows us to meet immediately, that doesn't require 24 hours in advance for an agenda. That's completely unacceptable. We got to figure out how to make that easier. I see that it was difficult for even the city council to get a meeting. Like, I won't even go any further into that. We can work on that this year, but we need to be thinking about how to expedite this process. We need to be thinking about transparency, being told every single time on our part, on the city's part, on everybody's part, that once we give it to someone else, is just gone, right? Like, that is what creates what we thought was going to be a riot on Sunday. That's what creates fires in cities. That is what creates the lack of transparency. It's completely unacceptable, and we have to figure out a way to deal with this. I brought this up in almost every single meeting, and I'm tired. I'm so exhausted of this. Like, I just don't know what it's going to take. Specifically to you, Chief, we talked about the use of the video, and I'm more than excited to see how the first rollout of that went. I want to see exactly when cameras were turned off, when they were turned on, and how our public dollars are being used. And furthermore, I mentioned in the last meeting about the pervasive and habitual abuse that I did not think was going to be cured by training. I asked you what you plan to do about that last week, and training was your answer. And you said that we had barriers to face with the labor unions. And I furthermore want to know, what is your plan for that? Because that is not going to be an end all be all. I will make it my business to make sure that that is not yet said again. We need the council support. I know they can hear me. We absolutely need your support. We have to become an oversight committee. We can talk about that again at the next meeting on February 8th, but it's time. We cannot, if that child or that person had have died, that is a human, that is a community member, whether they break the law or not, that is a community member. And we cannot, violence is just not justified against community members in that way. Like, beyond all that, I will just say that we have to find a better way to handle this. And street racing, weddings, funerals, festivals, whatever reason people find to gather is never a reason to bulldoze through people in any kind of vehicle, whether a pedestrian or whether a civilian or an officer. That's completely unacceptable. So I'm calling for accountability, and I'm calling for you to answer my questions about what your plan is with this and how do we move forward. You don't have to answer that now. Everybody else can go.
Thank you, Kara. Chief, did you want to answer now or defer?
Yeah, I think I need to get a better understanding of the question itself. And
Okay.
what
We can do that.
specifically
Just
that we're talking about.
Well, my
Okay.
only question specifically to the rest of it was just talking about the events in general. I said that we see you as a community. We see you. We see how you chose to communicate what happened last night. I just want to let you know that I personally see that and the community sees that as well. But my actual question to you was the continuation of the question last week. We talked about training and whatever was the other thing that you said was gonna fix this not being enough. We talked about needing real policy and real reform, and we got to talk about hiring and firing. And if we don't talk about that, people are going to die. We got lucky yesterday. And if had people died and we started talking about street racing today, we would be extremely tone deaf. We would be sorry. This would be embarrassing. It's already embarrassing. So my question to you is about accountability. And are you still sticking with training as an end all be all to police reform and to fix these issues? If you want to answer that in a later meeting because we need to talk about just last night, that's fine. You could sit with that. I'm okay with that.
Okay, I think I just need to make a clarification. If I ever said that training was the end all, then I misspoke. What I do know is training is part of the components of trying to change behavior and trying to hold people accountable. There are other pieces of transformation that's necessary. And I believe when you talked about the change in policies and such, and I think that's part of what we do is looking at policies and looking at procedures and trying to make the changes to occur. I think about just the body worn camera policies. I think about the 8 can't wait policies. Those are things that I think that we as a police department have engaged with CPAC and you folks regarding how to make things better. We have to do it collaboratively. So the police department itself and independent is not going to work. It has to be a whole community effort. When we look at legislation, we talked about that before, is how do we currently change the processes or the laws that are in place that we are bound to? And I realize there's a lot of emotions and feelings involved, but we have to look at all these things from a systemic process. So there's so many different components of it, you know, and training is one. And I know we talked about it last week, but it's going to take a long time. So let's talk about the current situation that we're in. It took a long time for us to get to this situation. It's going to take a while. We have to be patient. And I know people don't want to hear that, but that's the process that's going to have to take place. You know, everyone has to be in it for the long haul. And through all those changes, policies, changes, legislatures, all those pieces, all those are going to be components for the transformation processes, whether it's in the department or within our city or within its society.
Thank you, Chief. And with that, I'll move on to one of our newest members. Tara, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just like I've just been like reading a lot of like the news and just reading as much as I can today. And I think just the biggest thing was that it was so scary, and it was like it's just a horrible image that I can't get out of my head now. And I just like really want that to never happen again. But I feel like right now that can't be promised. It just like can't be ensured without a lot of change. And I really hope there's like a biggest sense of urgency with that, because it was just so scary just seeing that car and those people. And it was, yeah, that was the biggest thing, was just how scary it was, and just seeing those videos. And I don't ever want to see that again, but I know I will when it's frustrating.
Thank you, Tara. And I'd like to invite our other newest member, Jeffrey. Would you like to speak?
Sure. Yeah, I'm probably like a lot of people in the community right now, still processing a lot of this. It just happened the other day, and I think it's a good idea to you know, we can take quick action, and it could be the wrong action. So it is appropriate to, thoughtfully go through this process. And that's what we're here as the advisory committee to help do. I'm new, so this is quite a baptism into this committee, and it just shows how serious of these types of issues that can come up. And we're on a national and world news with this, so I think we really need to be mindful about what we do going forward, that it's a right action. I would say that the more transparency that we can see between the police department and the community, as well as the city council and the community, the better. Information is pertinent and everybody wants to know. We've had I counted almost 50 written in comments from public members. We just got those kind of in the last few hours, and I've been reading through those, and there's the viewpoints of the citizens are very wide. So there's a lot of different feelings on what happened. Some folks are totally against what the police officer's action was, and some people were totally supporting of it. So it's really split. And so I think we need as much objectivity as we can. Don't let our passions get the best of us in this effort here that we're doing. We all may have personal feelings and whatnot, but it's important just to be as unbiased as possible to help our community heal through this process. So I think that the more information that we can get out of this, the Pierce County Force Interaction Team sooner, as they receive information or whatnot, you just, let the community know that this is very much a focus, and not let it go on the back burner, and that we're, kind of acting on that. I mean, it's good that we're here on Monday talking about this right now, and there's almost 600 people watching this right now. So it's a high visibility interest, and I'm shocked, and it's just really, really unfortunate for our city right now. So that's really the only statement I have. Just, yeah.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate that very much. With that, let's move to Jennifer. Would you like to speak?
I would just echo a lot of what's already been said. I have grave concern about the incident that occurred. I eagerly await the investigative report. I would add that I acknowledge the words of our chief, and I understand what he's saying. But as a person of color, it's frustrating to hear that we need to wait and be patient for that work to take place, and for it to be for us to need to be in it for the long haul, because I feel like as people of color, we have been doing this work for decades, and we feel a real sense of urgency. That's all.
Thank you, Jennifer. Elizabeth? I am not seeing the mute go off. With that, we'll come back to you, Elizabeth.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait a minute. There you are.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I think everyone's pretty much spoken how I feel about this. Well, not my personal feelings, but I'm going to keep them to myself and wait for the results. I really appreciate everyone's wisdom. I think they have much more than I do.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. We're glad to hear from you, and glad you're here. Dana, would you like to speak?
Ooh, boy. I'm going to try to be as, I guess, tempered as possible for today. Chief Akey, man, you're getting thrown into the fire, but it's the job you signed up for. This is the test of tests, and unfortunately, it is coming at you fast. And I guess I won't say the pun intended there for the next phrase on that, but it's coming at you fast. I'm appalled at what I saw. I've watched various videos from various angles, and I am no researcher. I'm nobody. I'm a citizen. And what I can tell you is, as a citizen, I don't like what I saw. I want to know what policies we have in place that would change the behavior that happened. And if there's not a policy that changes the behavior, how do we make actions happen quickly so that nothing like this ever happens again? Less than a year ago, or I guess just about a year ago, we were all talking about the Manuel Ellis case. And we were talking about the investigation that was going on with that. And we're still waiting on that investigation. I don't want to wait for another investigative report before actions are taken. I want to see some action out of our TPD now. The things that happened on Saturday night for the individuals that showed up to be observers of what was happening on site, they were community members who showed up to observe, to hold the police accountable, because unfortunately, as a community, we don't have faith in the TPD right now. And I hate to say that. I love the folks that I get to interact with that represent the TPD. And I'm on a couple of other groups that also go through things. As individuals, I love the folks that I get to work with. As a system, boy, it's broken, and I'm sorry for that. My hope is that we can check out policies as a group here. When this committee was first started, it was requested to be an oversight committee, and it was denied that opportunity. We can no longer deny this committee that opportunity to be an oversight group. We need to affirm to our citizens that when they come to us as a committee, that they're going not only to be heard, but something will happen. I think we have a lot of folks in our community right now wondering what's going to happen next. I think, as with a lot of us, we just sat in on the city council, and I with Kiara, was pretty hot. We spent a lot of time on that meeting talking about the street racing, which, yes, is a problem, but it was bypassing what we're actually talking about, which is the violence from the officer at that time. I'd like to say that this is not a systemic problem, but unfortunately it feels like it is. And I want to know as a committee how we can create better policies for accountability. I'm very curious right now as to how the body cam footage is going to be sent out to folks, or how it's going to be available to folks. This again is a brand new test of a brand new system. I guess I can say, if nothing else, this is an opportunity for growth yet again as a city of Tacoma. We have this opportunity right now to say, we just implemented body cams. Maybe some things need to be tweaked. What are the policy changes that we need to have? And I guess the other piece that I want to ask is, on behalf of folks that I've spoken with, how can we have better transparency? How can we also be honest about what's being seen without, I guess, giving away too much information for the investigation? It felt pretty disingenuous, the official comments that came out, and then having other videos show up that showed some other things. Now, let me be clear. I also don't refute the fact that this officer felt scared, right? Fear is an interesting thing. If we could all manage our fear, we'd have no problems in this society, because as a society, we act out of two places. We either act out of fear or love. And I guess I'm going to end on that. And that I hope that as we move forward, we act out of love for our community. What I saw last night with the folks coming into our community, they are not Tacoma. Those are people who understand that there's a systemic problem and they want to discuss that problem. I can hear that, but I don't like their tactics. I can say that. We need to figure out how we listen to our actual community, how we listen to the people who witnessed a horrific incident, and how we work with them to say, we're going to work to hopefully never have this happen again. And we're going to figure out the policies, the procedures, and we're going to get some oversight with our organization to actually help hold accountability. Chief Akey, again, I don't envy your position in this at all. I appreciate you taking the time, the energy, and your willingness to be in a leadership position. And I'm asking you to lead in a leadership position. I'm asking you to step up, and I'm asking you to let us help you in whatever way we can. So that's my short version.
Thank you, Dana. Lewis?
I'll wait, Stephen. I'll wait for a few minutes.
Okay, glad to give you that. Shana?
Dana, you said a lot of stuff that I would have come right out of my mouth. I was horrified to see that video. I was very appreciative that Chief Akey called it what it was, which was a use of force. I know that that was caused some uproar, that people were upset that Chief decided to label it that, but it's a vehicle running into a huge group of people. And I don't think we can count on two hands how many people could have died as a result of that action. I understand that all the information isn't out yet. I understand that I was not that officer in that moment and what that officer emotionally was going through. I do know what I saw. I saw an officer be able to back up. I didn't see tons of people in the back of that. Listening to the communication with like dispatch and TPD, just as a citizen, backup had been called. So I think that that warrants a conversation about putting ourselves in a situation where we would have to respond in that way of ramming people over with a vehicle. I too was disappointed that most of the conversations surrounded the street racing, which I understand was an issue, and that's why police were there. But we're talking about a police officer ramming into citizens. And with the responsibility of being a police officer comes the responsibility of being able to make mindful decisions, even in the hardest moments. I'm interested to see what the body-worn camera shows. Hopefully, Chief, do we know for sure that that officer's body-worn camera was activated?
From my understanding, remember how we talked about the implementation of the body-worn cameras, how we're going to have A set and B set? It's just unfortunate that this incident happened on the crew that's scheduled to get that body-worn camera on February 4th. However, the body-worn camera conversation we had earlier with the city council, that had to do with the demonstration that happened after the event occurred, when we had to arrest a couple of our residents, and that body camera showed that interaction. So, but at the same time, you know, I'm making sure that I'm with my staff and figuring out what body cameras, you know, were out there that we're not aware of. So we're making sure we go through all those processes now.
Okay. I feel like I heard Chief Akey earlier when he was talking about how things will take time. I'm assuming you meant the healing process and the ability to kind of overhaul a system that is broken in many ways. It seems to me like an immediate action we could take would be making sure that all officers have body worn camera. Lewis and I were not happy with the activation amnesty period. We did not want there to be this huge gap of time that officers did not have to activate their body worn camera. I understand that it becomes a process and a new system that they need to be able to get in the habit of doing. But I mean, part of this, right, is the reason why we got body worn camera. Kiara talks a lot about transparency, and this is a big piece of it. And that also helps people, like Crystal mentioned, not jumping to all these conclusions based on trying to piece together all these different videos. And I understand that our committee needs to take an unbiased approach, but being a member of this committee does also not wipe away and make invisible our own thoughts and feelings and what we bring to this committee. And I was just horrified. Like it was mentioned earlier, this is traumatic for every part of our community. And while we're in this transformation period, to have something like this happen, I know just makes us take so many steps back. I think that the policy committee, we need to jump on the use of force policy like now. It can't wait. And I do want community members to know, Bukoda sent us 48 pages of community input that we have received thus far, and I read every single one prior to the start of this meeting. It was a huge mix of what the community is saying. There's clearly a lot of pain and anger on both sides, and I just hope that we can find a way that we're going to be able to move forward with some sort of sense of unity, because this just, it just fractured a lot of progress that maybe had been made.
Thank you, Shana. Lewis, did you want to claim your time, or you want me to speak first?
I have to take a deep breath because this is pretty emotional for me as a Black man. I want to address something that Dana said, that we should be operating out of fear. But as a Black man, I operate in fear every day of my life, Dana. Every damn day of my life, I've had to operate in fear just because I'm big, Black, and you have to worry about your style in the community. I can't tell you how disappointed I am in decision making. My mother had a saying that common sense, she called it motherhood overrides everything. We can talk about use of force, we can talk about training, but this is a common sense approach. And for me, I'm speaking my truth. Why would an officer take his car and ram people in front of him and then say, I feared for my life? For me, this is me speaking, Chief Akey. Every time an officer used I fear for my life, that vindicates the officer and says that the person in front of him was guilty automatically. That's what's been going on in America for almost 300 years. We can no longer settle for I feared for my life. What does that mean? If you're going to train, what does that mean? I wasn't in the car. I wasn't the officer. I don't know where the officer's head was at, but I refer back to common sense. Common sense would say, maybe he could have sat in a car. Maybe he could have backed up. I've seen some of the videos. I didn't see them all. But why run over people? When I saw that, my heart broke. I was crying. I'm saying, why would that happen? Why does that happen in America? But I feared for my life. That automatically vindicates an officer for whatever they do. So for me, as a Black man, I'm speaking my truth. This is what I live with. So if that had been my son or somebody else out there and he'd have got killed, he said, I fear for my life, that officer would have been vindicated. And I'm waiting to see what the investigation is going to show. For me, I think an investigation needs to be done independently with police and citizens. I call it the fox watching the chicken coop. I'm very straight with you. You can't have police investigating police because they're going to protect their own. This is what I've experienced all my life. And you know what I do for a living, and I have to balance that relationship, but this is outrageous. For me, it's outrageous. And I know I have to be a partner with TPD, but this is outrageous. There's no excuse for this to have had happen. Something else should have happened. Why wasn't their backup called in before they even moved in on the crowd? That's one of the questions I have. Why was he there by himself? I don't get it. I don't get any of this. So for me, I'm just waiting to see what the investigation is going to say. That's all I can say right now. And if I've offended you, Chief, I'm not going to apologize for offending. I'm just speaking my truth, man, because that's what I've had to live with all my life. And some of this is personal and some of it is professional.
Thank you, Louis. I think we got everybody so far. I guess it turns over to me. There's no question that this was a very upsetting video to watch and to rewatch and to see different angles on. There's some question about that. It was ugly. One observation, and this is not any judgment whatsoever, but in protest videos I've seen, there's a little bit of a difference here that kind of concerns me. And I look forward to various surveillance cameras that would have recorded this incident as well. But protesters tend to leave an escape route. And I didn't see that here, but that's neither here nor there. We'll see it in the investigation. This was the first real world test of body cameras for Tacoma Police Department. And I'm really, really sorry to hear that there wasn't one in play on that. I've listened to North Main. I listened to this develop, and I've listened to it all the way through. I think there's some information to be had doing that. We will be watching Tacoma's leadership as to what they will decide to do and what initiatives they will take, and stand by for CPAC to support anything and everything. I do absolutely support the declaration that this was a use of force because of the disparity between a vehicle and a human being. I think that was absolutely appropriate. I appreciate that we've got almost 600 people on. And I guess I want to ask everybody to take some deep breaths. We've got processes in place, everything from emergency vehicle operations course review of the situation to Tacoma Police Department accident review to I-940 compliant PC fit, prosecutor's office. We've got some investigations going, and I'm confident that we will get the information that we are looking for. I'd like it just as quickly as possible as well, but it's going to take a little bit on some of it. Still, we have information that we can look to in open source to inform us a bit. I would like to challenge the whole Tacoma community for a moment. Because in a perfect world, if everybody had been in compliance with the laws and compliance with policies, if everybody had done everything appropriate and socially appropriate, I'm not thinking that this would have happened. Not saying that it's an excuse, but I challenge, it's not just a TPD thing to fix. It's not just a city council transformational thing to fix. It's a community thing. We accept some things, and running over people is not acceptable. That's fine. And we don't accept some things. I'm going to challenge the community to not accept more things that honestly endanger more lives across the board. I know it's not a popular position to take, but I think it's important to say, and it's fairly unbiased. With that, I will end my comments, and I will ask the committee, what next steps do we need to take? And I'll just leave it open to whoever would like to respond.
I think Lewis and I need to meet immediately, and the rest of our subcommittee about the use of force policy for TPD and the use of force continuum.
Exactly what I was getting ready to say, Gina.
Good. Any other next steps?
Absolutely. Oh, Chris, are you going? Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. 'Cause I can take my breath. I got them all day.
I would like to see something at the next meeting regarding specifics of the completion of the rollout of the body cams and the timeline, and hopefully see some movement to the left on the calendar to get officers to have, all officers to have body worn cameras, just like Shana mentioned. Of course, it's incredibly that the officer involved in this incident didn't have a body worn camera. And honestly, it's like the most disappointing thing I think I've heard, because we have worked so hard to get body worn cameras in. And the fact that this incident occurred and we don't have that data to show and to pull up. I'd also like to see movement from the CPAC regarding moving us towards an oversight committee, as we've been discussing. I'd like the city to facilitate setting those discussions up with the CPAC and getting any legal parties involved that need to be involved. And I'd like to see a timeline on that. I'd also like to see the use of force policy reviewed, like Shana mentioned. I'd also like to see what policies and procedures the TPD has in place in approaching large crowds and street racing crowds. If there isn't one, I'd like to see a timeline for one being generated. And I'd like to see some action on all of those by the next meeting, whether it's a start of it or a timeline. All these things I've gathered from listening to the committee members, and I think we can all agree that there does need to be action. I understand there's processes and procedures in place, but there's no reason why we all can't work a little extra harder and take some more time and push, and with support of city council and the city staff and the TPD, that we can work together and get some of these things in place to provide the transparency that the citizens of Tacoma need, so we can help heal this relationship. Because this isn't gonna be good for us if we cannot progress this at a timely manner. That's all I have, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Kiara?
I just want to echo what Crystal just said. Those were basically all the things that I wanted to make sure that didn't get lost in my my upset and trauma that I've experienced. I also just want to add to the list. We need to be able to communicate to the community how they can access the camera footage. It's completely unacceptable that we have been rolling this out for over a year, and we didn't think about how we were going to communicate to the community how to access that. We knew we were going to have 1,000 people watching tonight, and that was, if we had one job, like that was the one thing we could have come with. So a little frustrated about that, but I want to make sure that we get that by the next meeting.
Yeah.
And I also want to make sure that we get on that list. In addition to becoming an oversight committee, I want to make sure that we have full access to be able to get to that footage, regardless of a independent investigation or not. And whatever it takes to do that, we need to handle it, whatever that looks like. So if there are barriers, we need to be working on them.
I just want to jump in real quick, Kiara. Yeah. That's already up on the website. If people go to the body worn cameras website, there is the link to PDR body camera footage. It is already up there, plus the policy related to PDRing it based on what it is right now. It doesn't have all of the, how we had the two separate, we had what was approved right now, and then the future ones based on what's approved right now. That's what's up on the website now. The case is also on the use of force page that people can sign up for updates and get updates as we get more information. It's already been uploaded and is available to the public.
So Okay, wait, can you just run that back to me?
Yeah.
Let me give you a scenario for the 566 people that probably were confused also.
Okay.
So I'm a person and hypothetically I was arrested and I'm out of jail and I need to access the footage of my arrest. How do I do that?
You have to submit a PDR,
Okay.
and there's a link on the page for PDRs related to body cameras.
And do we know how long what's the timeline on that?
I do not know that because each one is different because there are certain redactions that have to take place based on the policy. And so I don't know the specific time frame. I know that we are bound by certain laws in terms of our responsiveness to PDRs. So we are still bound by that. And I don't want to misquote what those rules are, but it's in the policy that is accessible on that page.
Okay.
And then Kiara, just real quick, just so people know too, like one of the big reasons we want to move to an oversight committee is then CPAC doesn't have to go through that records request process and we can see documents sooner.
Yeah. I know we talked about the cameras again, but I just want to make sure that us as the policy committee, make sure that we get adding the continuous, I know we talked about this, but the continuous footage of not only the body worn, but the car cameras. So I know we haven't even gotten there, but I want to make sure that we get that and we start talking about it. Lastly, I just want to end with, this was not just a tragedy, like in a human way. This was a tragedy for, business folks. This was a tragedy for everybody who pays taxes to the city of Tacoma. We just had a 4% budget cut this year, and we lost, 12 days, I think, at the Tacoma Public Library. Police year budget was cut, and now we're dealing with, I don't even know how many lawsuits are going to come with this. So in addition to the property damage that happened last night, I am extremely upset. And this is like completely unacceptable just on a use of funds like level, right? Like we can't spend money like this. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. I just want to make sure that we are thinking about what folks are going through in terms of youth, in terms of like just people in general. We have not had live entertainment for almost a year, I think, at this point. And I feel like that's kind of been lost in all of the things that we've been talking about. And I feel like we need to be thinking about each other as humans. We need to be thinking about the stress that we're all under as we demonize folks and we wish them to death for basic things like gathering in the street. I'll stop at that. And I'm excited to meet February 8th. And I hope that folks join us again.
Outstanding. Thank you, Kiara. Are there any? Go ahead.
I have one other comment for our committee. I just want to make Shana and Kiara aware of it. I have asked to have the ability to go at least to observe a use of force class at the Criminal Justice Training Commission. If we're going to go down this road, we are going down this road, not if, we're going down this road, we need to understand what police officers are trained to do on the use of force continuum and how they're trained. And the reason I asked that, because we just went through this at another agency that I'm involved in, and I got to observe that. And I think there's a disconnect on many levels with the use of force. And I won't go into the details of that, but I think as we go down this road, we need to see with our eyes. We need to understand what police officers are taught and what they're feeling and how they react, because I think that will give us a bigger, at least a snapshot. But again, there is a disconnect between what they're taught and how they're responding on the street.
Thank you, Louis.
Outstanding, Louis. Thank you for, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just agreeing with Louis. And I also had one more ask of the city for our next meeting, and that would be to set up a meeting with the chaplaincy program, because I'm not sure what the status is of the contract with the CTRT. However, this is an event that could have been helped by the CTRT, and it still can, if depending on where we are in the contract. I think there's a lot of community trauma, and people that have this training and support can be reaching out to community members and helping with that. So I'd like an update on that in a separate meeting and with the subcommittee, and see how we can potentially move that to the left of getting that contract accepted and starting some community outreach from the chaplaincy regarding this event.
Thank you, Crystal. Are there any other next steps for the committee that anybody has? Go ahead, Dana.
Great. Just a quick clarification question. With all of the written comments that we received tonight, what will happen with those? How will they be handled, and how will we let the public know that we've read them, acknowledged them? I don't want this just to be something that goes into the void, and I think the public, since they took the time to write these, needs to know what's going to happen with them.
Well, at the very least, what I can do is I'll be taking all the comments that were received when I sent them to you at 5 p.m., as well as all the comments that have been coming in since the meeting has begun. And I will upload that compiled PDF to the website, along with the recording for this meeting as well, later tonight. So those will be available to the public later tonight so that they can review the comments as well. If you'd like something else done with the comments as well, I can do so, but that'll be at a minimum what I'll be doing.
So
Thank you, Dakota. Go ahead.
Sorry, Stephen. So if the committee would like to develop a response, or would like to, forward those comments with your comments to council, you can just have Stephen reach out to Megan, and you guys, a subcommittee or the engagement committee can kind of think of what response. I don't know if you guys want to respond to each one, or if you want to write a generalized response and then forward those to council with your thoughts as a committee. We can facilitate that happening as well.
Thank you, Tanisha. Dana?
Last thing I got is
Nope.
The question that immediately came to my mind, and like everybody else's, was where's the camera footage? And I think that we can't kind of really, we got to take a look at the dash cams in the cars. That's got to be something that we really think about. And I was thinking about what other cameras are even available out in just on Pacific Avenue. What kind of, should we take a look at those? As my background, it's all about being able to get as much information as we can about things. And that's the first thing that kind of questioned my mind is where's the cameras, and where, so that's something that I think the city should consider. We probably should add that to our list. And it's good to talk about the use of force, but also I think, and I don't know exactly the police kind of language on this, but we talk about escalation of force too. And what's the steps to be able to escalate to that higher level of force, and where does it fall? I can't imagine that this, where it ever said would drive over somebody. Like I can't, imagine the situation and that would happen. And so the escalation of force, especially with the amount of experience this officer had on the police force, 30 years, that's just, that was shocking. But the main thing was just, I think we really need to think about cameras as a whole, as a city, bigger.
Mike, would you like to address the dash cam thing?
Oh, yeah. So
go ahead, Jen.
Regarding the dash cam, that proposal was talked about and discussed. I think at a certain city leadership, we'll have to re-engage that conversation to see, to look at the different aspects that's involved in it. I think as the need arises or the desire arises, and talking with our city leadership, we can talk through that process and figure out the funding and the process that's going to be necessary, just like we did the body cams. So that same process is going to have to be utilized as we move forward with that.
But Jeff, to be clear, we do not have dash cams right now, so there's no dash cam footage to look at.
Yeah, that's what I was made aware of, and I was quite surprised. Something that really seems to me to be an obvious thing that we need to take a look at. And at least and stuff's going on like it's around the city too, in those major throughways. Cameras up on buildings and things like this are probably not a bad thing to think about as well.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Any other next steps?
I just want to say, and I don't know how, like all these like processes work. And and I feel like this is like kind of obvious, but I like know the investigation is gonna happen, and like I just wanted to like be clear that waiting to hear what happens is like an independent thing, and waiting isn't really an action. And I feel like there's like a lot of positive and necessary actions that can be taken place, like a lot of things that people have listed. And I just like wanted to say like those are so important, and waiting is not an action. So that, yeah.
Thank you, Tara. Dana, in June, we got a whole bunch of defund the police emails. I answered every single email that came in, although it took me at a rate of 3 per day a while to get through every one of them. If we do decide as a committee to go ahead and answer to everybody, I agree with you. If somebody takes the time to write us, I think we owe them at least a thank you, if nothing else. We can split them up if you want, or I can do it at 3 per day. I'll get through the pile eventually. I guess the only next steps that I've got to add to the mix, and it's really more for Chief, and I think this stuff's already probably in process. The EVOC cadre probably is going to want to take a look at emergency vehicle operations and how this was impacted. And there was another one, protocols developed to deal with these sideshows and that type of stuff as far as a standardized protocol response. I'm sure those things are in process, but I look forward to seeing them when they are complete. Thank you. And with that, unless there's objection, I encourage everybody to go back and look at the City Council special meeting tonight. It was very informative. I thought it was an excellent meeting. About 10 minutes before the City Council meeting came on, TV Tacoma actually had a video on how to request public records specifically for body-worn camera video. I know that video is also on the Tacoma Police Department body camera website, so that's out there. People can go ahead and keep up to date with things by going to the Independent Investigative Team site at Pierce County WA.gov, and the Police and Use of Deadly Force in Tacoma website under the City Manager's Office will also give current updates. That being said, we do have a regular meeting on the 8th of February. We'll have special meetings if warranted. We will have public comment in the meeting on the 8th. We'll plan for a little bit extra time for that meeting. Is there any objection to closing the meeting out for the evening?
Stephen, real quick before you do, and
yes,
I think Chief Akey wants a chance to say some.
Yeah, I saw Chief too.
I would like to just remind everyone that tomorrow is virtual forum, which is a kind of a citizens forum outside of the meeting, and people can make public comment there. As always, you can also submit your comments in writing, and council will receive those as well. So in addition to the February CPAC meeting, tomorrow night is a great opportunity to voice concerns to City Council. And then I'll pass it to Chief.
Hey, thanks, Tanisha. It's just a reminder, once again, I know, and Tanisha, I really appreciate you reminding me of the public disclosure process as well. But when everyone gets a chance to visit the body-worn camera site that the City of Tacoma has done, it's a great site that, MCO help, or not just help, but develop. There's videos, great videos involved, frequently asked questions. I think a lot of the questions that came up about body cameras are there. Also, when people we're discussing the cameras, and I know people are disappointed it's not out there and such. But this is just a reminder, as we were implementing the body camera program, and even in a study session, in early January, we talked about the implementation of timelines, very specifically of how it's going to be deployed. You're right. Very unfortunate that this incident wasn't covered, with the body cameras. The next group, it just happens, this group was the group that the body cameras wasn't going to get issued to them until February 4th. So next week is when the second group, large group, will be of uniform officers will be getting that. So I know those conversations came up, and I was hoping that I can just add a little bit of clarity to that.
Oh,
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Tanisha. Go ahead.
I just have a question. I was just wondering, like, obviously, hopefully nothing like this ever happens again, but like when situations happen, will like there be a way to like prioritize, or like a way to, when officers need to like call in for more people to come, to like a priority of people who do have body cams to like also come, if since it's like it's a not like a 1-day rollout schedule. I don't know, I was just thinking about that because there needs to be more cameras getting there if there aren't there already.
No, we agree with you. I think that's a great comment, and we just wanted to say, so our implementation between January and March, so that means everybody in uniform on the Tacoma Police Department wears a body camera. That includes the sergeants, lieutenants, and the captains, and even the assistant chief that's assigned to the bureau. So our intent is to get there. What you are saying is a great idea, and we're moving towards that.
Hey, Chief, really quick, or maybe Tanisha or Bakota, could somebody put that website in the chat for not the panelists, but, well, I would like it too, but for the attendees to be able to get to easily? We could probably talk.
Tanisha, I think you're muted.
I think Chief just did it.
Here we go.
There we go. Thank you. We could probably talk later about, I got to look over it, but I feel like we probably have to talk later about how to make it easy to read, just in case it's very like policy heavy and not like, I don't know, not accessible for people to quickly get the information that they need. I don't know. So I'll look at it first, but maybe that could be something to talk about for later.
We tried to make it super simple. There's like a button that takes you right there. But what I'll also do for the CPAC team is we created kind of a cheat sheet for city council, so they'd know where certain things are to direct people. Mm-hmm. And I'll get you the URL so that you can quickly tell people like, oh, you want to find this here. We have it. Just a lot of things were happening today. So I will get that out to all of you. I'll get it to Dakota to send to you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
Outstanding. I will call for a vote. In addition to the voice vote, would you wave your hand in front of the camera? First of all, if your vote is aye.
Aye.
Okay, I see a majority of the committee has voted aye. The motion is adopted. We will adjourn at 7:20 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thanks, Stephen, for leading.